Back on the streets this Sunday, demonstrators in Myanmar rally against the recent military coup. Meanwhile, the funeral is held for a young woman killed during the now 3-week-long protest movement. Lift crippling US sanctions and will get back to negotiating the 2015 nuclear deal. The message from Iranian authorities this Sunday as a deadline set by Tehran approaches. Plus, Israel takes a step towards normalcy, reopening businesses, services and some schools. This with nearly half of the country having received the first dose of the coronavirus vaccine. Hello and welcome. You tuned into France 24. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Biar here with the headlines this hour. Our top story then, 7 members of Niger's Electoral Commission have been killed and 3 others injured in a blast in the country's west. Now, a vehicle belonging to the Electoral Commission struck a landmine in the Tillaberi region near Mali. Voters have been casting their ballots in round 2 of presidential elections. The ruling party candidate Mohamed Bazoum is seen as the favourite after garnering over 39% of votes in the first round. He's, of course, going head-to-head with the former president, Mahaman Usman, who scored 17% in the first round. To Myanmar next, where thousands of demonstrators have rallied once again this Sunday as the chorus of condemnation over the army's recent military coup grows. Today's protests then coming a day after the military killed 2 protesters and injured 30 others in the second largest city of Mandalay. Authorities have ramped up the pressure on the protest movement, which was sparked when the army deposed the de facto leader Aung San Suu Kyi on February the 1st. Well, meanwhile, a funeral has been held for a young anti-coup protester who was killed 10 days ago. For more on this, Philip Sherwell is the correspondent for the Sunday Times. He talks about the crackdown on protesters.
The protesters, the opposition, the people who are taking to the streets certainly are. They are well aware from previous generations of activists, their parents' generation, even their grandparents' generation, that in 2007, in 1988, the military cracked down violently to suppress protests. There were bloodbaths that ended those uprisings. And the military here has a huge quandary. They really did believe when they seized power on February the 1st that really people would fall into line behind them, maybe reluctantly, but they ruled the country for 50 years until they handed over partial power to a civilian government on their terms. They were used to running this show, and they have been completely blindsided by the level of opposition. And that's not just opposition in terms of the protests that you're seeing on the streets, but it's the civil disobedience movement of workers striking, government workers, bringing key parts of the sector of the government sort of operations and key economic sectors to a halt. So the military is going to have to make a decision very soon. Are they going to allow these protests to continue, or are they going to crack down further? Yesterday was a very ominous sign. It wasn't just that 2 protesters were shot dead and many others were wounded, but a feared military unit that has been held responsible or named as being responsible for crimes against humanity in the crackdown on the Rohingya Muslims in 2017 was deployed on the streets of Mandalay, that their badges were seen, they were there. So all the signs are that the military is preparing for a much tougher crackdown, but they also know they'll earn international opprobrium if they do that. So it's kind of a touch and go situation at the moment.
Away from Myanmar, Iranian authorities have reiterated their message this Sunday, lift crippling US sanctions and will relaunch discussions over the 2015 nuclear deal. Well, with just hours left before a deadline set by Tehran expires, the UN nuclear watchdog chief has been meeting with the head of Iran's Atomic Energy Agency. Well, President Joe Biden then saying last week he is willing to get back around the negotiating table on this issue. France 24's Catherine Viette has details.
I'm so happy to see you again.
I'm so happy that you granted me the privilege to see you again.
Warm greetings ahead of serious negotiations. The head of the UN's nuclear watchdog, Rafael Grossi, has met with his Iranian counterparts to discuss the country's compliance with inspections. Iran has already informed the International Atomic Energy Agency that it plans to suspend the voluntary transparency measures it agreed to when it signed the 2015 nuclear deal. This means an end to snap inspections and no access to non-nuclear sites. The measure, passed by Parliament in December, goes into effect on Tuesday. unless the U.S. lifts its sanctions on Iran. The foreign minister said the U.S. must make the first move if it wants to salvage the landmark deal.
There has been a dismal failure on the part of the Europeans and the Americans to implement their obligation. Now, we have reduced the level of our commitment, but we have always said it's reversible. The minute they come back to full compliance, we will go back to full compliance.
Zarif's comments come after U.S. President Joe Biden said on Friday that the U.S. is willing to re-engage in negotiations. The two countries remain at odds over who should take the first step to revive the accord.
The problem in the United States, and it doesn't matter which administration, the problem is U.S. is addicted to sanctions. U.S. is addicted to pressure. U.S. is addicted to bullying.
While Iran ramps up the pressure, officials said they would continue to work with the IAEA.
Away from Iran, Israel has taken a step towards normalcy this Sunday with a plethora of businesses, services and some schools reopening their doors. The country has then eased some restrictions from its third national lockdown. Health officials say an efficient vaccination rollout programme means that 49% of the population have received at least one jab. A third of Israel's population have received both doses at this stage. That marks the world's swiftest inoculation pace per capita. All eyes now are on the country's so-called green passport document. Well, to bring us more on this story, France 24's Iris Makler is in Jerusalem. She tells us about those businesses reopening their doors this Sunday.
I went to the famous YMCA gym in Jerusalem this morning, and it's not an exaggeration to say that people were actually filled with joy, especially the swimmers for some reason, but everyone was just so happy. It's 5 months and 4 days, and someone could actually count the hours for me since the gyms were first shut during the second lockdown. They weren't reopened before the third lockdown. Now here they are back. And it is something, I think they felt very safe because it's only open to people who have had 2 vaccinations and 2 weeks, waited 2 weeks after that. So for that reason, as well as the actual joy of returning to the pool, to the gym, they were very happy. The Green Passport is available to you if you are vaccinated or if you've had coronavirus, you've had COVID-19 and recovered. So ordinary shops like the malls that are opening today are open to everyone. But if you want to do the special things, the fun things in life, if you want to go to the gym, to the pool, to a hotel, to a museum, to concerts, to the theatre, then you will need your green passport. Now, the people that I interviewed this morning were very happy about that. It's a kind of carrot and stick rolled into one. It's to encourage people to go back. But the people who run the gyms and the theatres are slightly more ambivalent. First of all, they'd like to have everyone in. That's for financial reasons. But also they then become the police. And they are the ones who have to ensure that people who haven't been vaccinated or who don't have a certificate can't come in. So that's a little bit awkward for them, I think.
And finally for you, for the fourth time in a matter of days, the highest active volcano in Europe, that's Mount Etna, has sent both smoke and ash billowing into the air. Mount Etna then sprung into life for over an hour, sending lava pouring into the deserted Valle del Bove. France 24's Nadia Massi explains.
A cloud of ash swirling 6 kilometres in the air. This is Etna, Europe's largest active volcano. It's been erupting for the past 4 days now, and 40 kilometres below, the city of Catania is covered in ash and volcanic rock. But residents aren't too worried.
Occupazione relativamente, noi ci conviviamo con l'Etna, siamo contenti, meno male che è durato solo un'oretta, 2 ore.
The route up to Mount Etna is closed to the public. Only scientists have been making this journey, filming a little of the lava flow near the peak. Further down, police keep curious visitors away as the volcano's eruptions are unpredictable.
La Guardia di Finanza effettua servizio di interdizione per evitare che gli escursionisti si avvicinino alle aree pericolose.
But the risk to those living in nearby villages is thought to be relatively low. In fact, residents sometimes gather at night to watch the spectacular eruptions which take place here every few years.
Spectacular images from Mount Etna there. You are very much up to date. Join us in about 20 minutes' time. We'll have more international headlines for you.